The city never slept. Its towers pierced the clouds, its streets hummed with ambition, and among them moved Ethan Cole, a man trying to hold two worlds together. By day, he was a janitor inside the gleaming glass walls of Donovan Enterprises. By night, a father telling bedtime stories to a little girl who believed her dad could fix anything. That belief was the only thing keeping him going. Every night after mopping marble floors, Ethan would look up at the top floor where lights still burned long after midnight. They belonged to Claire Donovan, the company's ruthless CEO, a woman whose empire ran on fear and efficiency. She was known for firing people without hesitation, for treating warmth as weakness, for believing emotions only slowed success. Ethan had never spoken to her, but he'd heard her footsteps echo through the halls like thunder before a storm. What neither of them knew was that one small act of kindness would soon bring their worlds colliding. And it would happen on the night both of their lives quietly began to fall apart. It was past 11 when Ethan found himself alone in the lobby, the mop squeak the only sound left in the building. Then came the elevator chime, sharp, unexpected. The doors slid open to reveal Claire, phone pressed to her ear, expression tight with anger. "I don't care about excuses, close the deal," she snapped before ending the call. When her eyes met Ethan's, she paused just long enough to remember he existed. "Why are you still here?" she asked coldly. "Overtime, ma'am," he said softly. She nodded, half distracted, and turned toward the doors. But as she stepped outside, the rain that had been whispering all evening broke into a storm. She froze, staring at the downpour, shoulders tense. Ethan hesitated, then walked to the supply closet and returned with an umbrella, old, slightly torn, but dry. "Ma'am, you'll get soaked." For a moment, she just stared at him, the word ma'am sounding strangely gentle in his voice. "Thank you," she said quietly, taking it without meeting his eyes. She left, but when the door closed behind her, she realized it was the first time in years someone had done something for her without wanting anything in return. And though she'd never admit it, that thought followed her home. The next morning, Claire arrived at work early, coffee in hand and walls built higher than ever. But the umbrella sat on her desk, a silent reminder of a stranger's kindness. She told herself it meant nothing, yet when she passed Ethan in the hall that evening, she caught herself slowing down. He was kneeling beside a copier, fixing a jam, humming softly. His hands were rough, steady, the kind that built rather than destroyed. That night, curiosity replaced judgment. For the first time, she asked her assistant about him. "Single dad," came the answer. "Lost his wife 3 years ago, works double shifts to pay for his daughter's school." Claire said nothing, but something inside her shifted. The next week, when she saw him nodding off in the break room at 2 a.m., she left a fresh cup of coffee beside him. No note, no signature. He found it minutes later, still warm, and smiled to himself. From that day on, kindness passed between them in silence. An umbrella for a coffee, a smile for a door held open. Neither knew it yet, but their quiet exchange was teaching them both what they'd forgotten: empathy. Every story of change meets resistance, and theirs came one Thursday morning when Ethan's daughter, Lily, fell ill. He called in late, voice strained, explaining he had to take her to the hospital. The new floor manager, eager to impress Claire, reported the absentee. When Ethan returned that night, his badge no longer worked. He stood in the lobby, rain dripping from his coat, heart pounding. Moments later, Claire stepped out of the elevator, expression unreadable. "You didn't show up for your shift," she said. "I sent a message," he replied quietly. "My daughter," she cut him off. "I have to treat everyone the same." The words came out colder than she intended, but the damage was done. Ethan's shoulders dropped. "Of course," he whispered. She walked away before guilt could catch up, but that night she couldn't sleep. On her kitchen counter sat a small drawing Lily had once given Ethan. He'd shown it to her weeks ago without realizing he'd left it behind. It showed a stick figure holding an umbrella over another. The caption read, "Be kind. It rains on everyone." That single sentence shattered something inside Claire she didn't know was breakable. By morning, Claire had already called HR. She reinstated Ethan's job, doubled his pay, and ordered a new benefits package that included childcare. But she didn't stop there. She went to the hospital herself, walking through those sterile halls until she found Ethan sitting beside Lily's bed, holding her hand. When he looked up, confusion filled his eyes. "Miss Donovan," she smiled faintly. "Claire," she corrected. "You don't need to woe. About your job, take care of her." He tried to speak, but she continued softly. "You were right. It does rain on everyone." Lily opened her eyes and whispered, "You're the umbrella lady." Claire laughed quietly for the first time in years. That laugh didn't just fill the hospital room, it softened the edges of her own loneliness. Watching father and daughter together, she realized she had measured success by everything she'd built, not by anything she'd healed. And in that moment, the woman who'd believed compassion was weakness understood that it was, in fact, the strongest force of all. Weeks passed and the office began to feel different. Claire no longer moved like a shadow people feared, but like light cutting through fog. She learned names, birthdays, stories. The same employees who once trembled now smiled when she passed. Ethan became more than the janitor. He became the quiet center of a culture shift. One afternoon, she found him repairing a broken office chair and said, "You fix more than furniture here." He looked up, a small smile tugging at his lips. "We all try to fix what we can, right?" It wasn't flirtation. It was understanding. Two souls who had rebuilt parts of themselves through empathy. And though they never spoke of what had happened that night in the rain, both knew it was the start of something profound. Proof that even the smallest act of kindness can set off a chain reaction powerful enough to change an entire building, maybe even a life. Months later, the company launched a new program called the Umbrella Project, funding scholarships for employees' children and community initiatives for single parents. Claire stood on stage beside Ethan and little Lily, addressing a crowd of reporters and workers who once saw her as untouchable. "Kindness isn't charity," she said. "It's vision, the kind that sees people instead of positions." The applause was genuine, but what mattered most was the moment afterward when she turned to Ethan and whispered, "Thank you for reminding me what leadership means." He smiled. "You reminded me what dignity feels like." From that day forward, Donovan Enterprises wasn't known for its profits, but for its humanity. And behind every policy, every program, was the story of a janitor who offered an umbrella and a boss who learned how to stand in the rain. Years later, when Lily graduated high school, Claire sat beside Ethan in the audience, clapping with the loudest pride. Life had come full circle, not as romance, but as respect, as family built not by blood but by choice. And as the crowd cheered, Claire thought back to that night, to the storm, to the man who had changed her without asking for anything. She realized that the most powerful stories aren't about grand gestures. They're about quiet ones, the moments when someone chooses empathy instead of ego. Headphone, and that's the story of Ethan Cole and Claire Donovan, the janitor and the CEO, the umbrella and the rain. If this story touched your heart, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Because somewhere tonight, someone needs to be reminded that a single act of kindness can change a life. And sometimes, It starts with offering an umbrella to a stranger.